Hola, hola, buenas tardes. Bienvenidos al tercer Caravana Talk del día. Es nuestro último talk y estamos aquí felices de estar con Mark Kwong. Él trabaja en Brand Boom, es una empresa en Los Ángeles que se dedica a generar la mejor experiencia tanto para el diseñador como para el comprador final de B2B, de venta de mayoreo. Mark tiene mucha experiencia en el mundo de la música, como en temas de empresa y de consumidor, y se encarga dentro de Brand Boom todos los temas de ventas, de alianzas, de marketing y del equipo de soporte técnico para todos los clientes que serían ustedes. Él tiene una creencia en que primero va el consumidor y en que siempre se tienen que mejorar los procesos de su equipo, de su persona. Y bueno, lo hemos visto en acción. Nosotros que ahorita estamos con esta plataforma para todos ustedes en esta caravana, el servicio al cliente, siendo nosotros los clientes, ha sido increíble. Y bueno, se lo debemos a Mark, que también, bueno, él es de Australia y vivió parte de su vida en Inglaterra, llevando a cabo todos estos trabajos, y ahora se dedica en Los Ángeles a hacer este tema de Brand Boom. Pero quería decirles otra cosilla. Bueno, en esta ocasión, ya me acordé, va a hablarnos, porque tienen tanta experiencia en Brand Boom y conocen muy bien a todos estos retailers o buyers, que nos va a platicar en esta presentación sobre la importancia o las técnicas y las maneras en que un diseñador debe accesar o acceder o comunicarse con un buyer, retailer o minorista. ¿Ok? Entonces, espero que disfruten mucho este contenido porque es realmente valioso. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, and you?
I'm doing great, enjoying.
I'm so glad to have you here with us, and I'm going to leave you with all your audience.
Okay.
I'm going to be here, just going to be muted and without a video, so you talk, and whenever you need me, just let me know.
Okay.
And we'll leave the questions and answers for the end, and I'll help you translate with that, okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Estoy diciendo, bueno, la presentación va a ser en inglés. Al final de la presentación tendremos la sesión de preguntas y respuestas. Si alguien necesita que yo traduzca o lo que sea, no dude en comentarlo aquí. Lo ideal es comunicarnos a través de este icono que se llama Q&A, ¿vale? Porque es más ordenado ahí y puedo yo controlar mejor la sesión de preguntas y respuestas. So, all yours, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in. Again, Gina and Alessandra, thank you for having me speak. That was a great introduction. Apologies that I don't speak Spanish, so this is going to have to all be in English, but hopefully you get some value out of it. And of course, at the very end, we're going to have availability for questions and things like that. So as Gina said, I'm from Brand Boom. I look after our sales, marketing and support teams. With me. And today I'm going to talk about how to connect with buyers. So with our platform, we have thousands of brands that work with us, and we also have hundreds of thousands of buyers that have actually used our platform to purchase from those sellers and brands from all around the world. We definitely get a lot of feedback from sellers in terms of what they're seeing in terms of the industry, and a little bit from buyers as well. We don't communicate with them as much, but they definitely do tell us a lot with the way they interact with our system. So I thought I'd share some of that interaction with you. So I'm going to start off a little bit more about looking at the overview of what it's almost like the sales process in this sort of new world is going to look like. And some of that is very, very dependent on the numbers that we're seeing happening. But the first thing I always sort of say to my brands, when they ask, us, or they ask, how can we do a little bit better, is, why are you selling to this person? Why me? Why does the buyer need this product? Why my business? All those questions, and everything revolves around why. I say this to my sales team as well. They're probably sick of me saying it, but it's why. Why are we selling to this person? Is there a benefit for both parties? Because if there isn't, is this an efficient use of your time? Obviously at the moment, the big elephant in the room is the pandemic. How are we sort of seeing, things change, through that? And some statistics for you, just to show you, where things are sort of looking and where things are sort of heading. Pre-pandemic, about 80% of transactions happen in store in terms of fashion. So I know that there are a wide range of products, from apparel to accessories, jewelry, some homewares as well, things for the house that are in the show, artwork. But in terms of fashion itself, a lot of people like to go to retail, and we've suddenly had this thing happen that we can't visit retail, or we can visit in limited quantities or capabilities. Our stores here in California, where I'm based, is 50% capacity, and there's some further lockdowns happening because of the fact that numbers are spiking at the moment. So definitely a big impact in terms of fashion. So what's going down as well besides this? Global retail, 30 to 40% down. Department stores, close to 29% down. Fashion has probably been the biggest hit, 78.8% down, and sort of the furniture category, 58.7% down. That's to be expected. Obviously, people are trying to save a little bit of money. Unfortunately, people have lost jobs, so they really have to save money. And that sort of, general, loose or accessible income has sort of gone, which is, a big shame for us in this industry. What I can tell you in terms of anecdotally, I'm not sure we have any firm numbers on this, but anecdotally, and we've spoken to quite a few customers about this, there are categories that are still thriving and doing well. We have quite a lot of streetwear customers, and, the sneaker space is still doing, quite well. The apparel side of that is not as strong. I would say that kidswear has been a strong, category over the last few weeks and couple of months. It's obvious, kids grow, they get their clothes dirty, they, ruin their clothes, get holes in them, that sort of thing. So it's an essential item. So kidswear hasn't been probably as, impacted as some of the other categories. And jewelry has been doing quite well. So if you're in the jewelry space, possibly not in that high end, a couple of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars sort of range jewelry, but I think people want to feel good. People want to, maybe invest in some small pieces, and jewelry seems to have been, having some success there. So there are good news stories, or more positive stories. The other thing as well is, I know we're all based on, in Latin America and Northern America, and things are sort of changing and perhaps spiking a little bit at the moment. But we can see, especially from our partners in Europe, Asia, and certain pockets of Australia, that there are some positive signs there, especially in Europe. I think the retail there is picking up, a little bit, because they have done a pretty good job with containment. Yeah, I think if you as a brand or a seller are looking at, okay, this is my addressable market at the moment, what can I, physically spend more energy and more time in? Obviously those categories that I spoke of, jewelry, kidswear, that sort of space, obviously doing well. But also geographically, if you focus on some things in Europe, I've had a browse of some of the stuff on Caravana Americana, and it's amazing. Like this is stuff that you don't get anywhere in the world. Gina, about this. I spoke to you very briefly yesterday about some a jewelry brand that's at the show for a sister's birthday, because it's unique items that you can't get anywhere else. So again, I'll talk a little bit about it later, but this is an opportunity for you to focus on how you position your brand to some of those areas where this stuff isn't available. Now there is one positive, one really great positive, which is online retail is up, and it's only going to go up. So that is up 8.4%. Obviously strongly due to things like Amazon, that we have here in North America, that does very well. I'm not sure if Amazon is the prime, I guess, tool for you guys there. There may be a different system. Obviously, different countries have different things, but things like that have been positive, and that's good to see. What that tells me is, from your perspective, you should look at those avenues. I think we're at a tipping point in society where trends is one thing, where you might have a trend for a particular season or particular period of time, but this is now up to social disruption, which is basically a pandemic, which has changed everything in the course of life. And this is your opportunity now to take advantage of that, or use that and say, okay, now that things are different, it's not going to change in the next 6 months or 12 months realistically. And by then, are we going to invent things that, are new business practices and new ways of doing things for the future? So are these old ways going to expire? And I think digital is really, something that is really, really important. Like, digital is where it is. And no matter what language you speak or how you sort of say it, digital is the way forward. And that starts from your side. I know some of you may do wholesale only, or may do D2C, or direct to consumer only. I don't think there's one silver bullet either way. I think you should be looking at both, ways of operating, because unfortunately the addressable market has shrunk, and so you really need to attack at every single avenue possible to you. So from a D2C side, there are great tools like Shopify that will allow you to sell direct to consumer. Obviously, other platforms exist as well. You can build your own off your own website. And then from a wholesale perspective, it's self-explanatory. I think there are great reasons, again, I'll discuss later, about going the wholesale path. But that's definitely a way forward as well. But in terms of either of those methods, either you're wholesaling or you're doing direct to consumer, there's really probably not a lot of sense in doing something physical at the moment, or starting fresh with physical. So opening a retail store is always a great idea, and historically having a landmark or a marketing tool like a retail store used to make sense, and it does make sense. But during a pandemic, maybe not best on your budget. So yeah, something that I want to kind of move on to is your product. So what that sort of means. Gina mentioned, I think before, that I've been part of the music industry for quite a number of years, and I've always said good music is timeless. You listen to Elvis, you listen to Beatles, Madonna, Michael Jackson, whoever. If it's good music, you still hear it on the radio today. People still sample it today, and I think the same thing is true from products that you create. So seasons really something that need to be focused on. I know that historically we focus on fall, winter, summer sort of seasons. And yes, there are seasons to a certain level where, a winter coat is very different from wearing a summer t-shirt, but buying seasons, a completely gone thing now. Like we're all in pandemic, sitting at home. And to be honest, for me, I look at it at a very, different way. I'm from Australia. So for half my life, or actually more than half of my life, I lived where summer was in, December, January, February sort of time frame. Now for me, that's that June, July, August, September sort of time frame. So there's a summer all the time, and there's a winter all the time. So I think that if you create, products which are timeless, products which can stand the age, you're going to do well. So that's something I would, also focus on. And if it's a good product, people are going to wear it. A good white T-shirt is a good white T-shirt. So I think that personally, to me, makes a lot of sense. And I think, in terms of your development now, can you look at manufacturing products which will work all year round? That's sort of the takeout that I'm sort of getting at, to make the most bang for your buck in terms of what you're spending. So I guess something that is really important. I feel like, some of this may come off as a little bit sales 101, and I'm not trying to make it that way, but I think, hopefully you get some value out of what I'm going to present to you. But the first thing I look at, especially from brands who speak to us and say, hey, look, I'm new, I need a little bit of help, is strategy. So, it's really, really important to work out what it is you want to do. Especially as a creator, I know this from, not creating products, but from creating music. I don't like to be told what to do. I want to do something that makes sense to me and feels right to me, and expresses me as a person, which is great. And that is ultimately what your business should be. So that's, the first thing is, what is my business and what is my identity? However, looking at the other side of that, at some point you do need to make some money and sell things. So, I think if you want to look at things like who I want to target with this, I think that's really, really important at the moment. You could go a scattergun approach and just email everybody that you sort of want on a list somewhere and hope that you get some bites. But I honestly don't think that at the moment that's the wisest idea. People are spending more time on their devices and debrowsing, the internet. We're seeing open rates for our Connect Digest. We have a sort of AI B2B platform marketplace. We're seeing that those rates have maintained throughout the majority of the pandemic and even increased in some cases, but the purchases still aren't necessarily back to pre-pandemic levels. So I think you're definitely going to get people who will look at your product, but at the same time there's less money to spend. So maybe you should, in my opinion, focus on targeting to the right sort of buyer. So some things that you would look at is, can I create different lines for different regions? Does that make sense for you? Manufacture in another region and perhaps lower your shipping costs. Different price points, but perhaps different ranges, a lower end, mid end, and maybe a high end price range, or maybe subcategories that you previously hadn't worked in. I know this seems like an obvious thing, but since pandemic has started, a lot of our apparel brands from various categories, men's, women's, streetwear, non-streetwear, they're looking at masks. Can they add masks as part of their product set? Sell as a complementary product to their existing range, or do some work in terms of, if you buy this, there's a donation to a particular charity or something, which I think is terrific. I think diversifying is always something to look at. I'm not suggesting that you have to do this, but it's always good to look at your options, especially now when you might have perhaps a little bit more time. But you can't rely on your existing vendors. We've looked at some things in the market, especially recently, with bankruptcies of major department stores here in the US. A lot of other big box retailers canceling orders for a certain period of time. So you can't necessarily rely, as good as your relationship is with those people. I think depending on how your contracts work with those people, you might have to start looking at different opportunities, different big box retailers or boutiques, smaller retailers, and trying to get more people to get your product in, and working that way. Excuse me, sorry. So I think defining separate strategies for majors and boutiques is also something that I would do. They work very, very differently. When our brands speak to a boutique, their systems that they use are much more simple. They probably don't even have some systems in some cases, and that discussion can be easier because it's smaller quantities. That boutique can purchase immediately on credit card. They may not even need terms or anything like that. Whereas when you're looking at majors, it can be tricky. Yes, it's great that they might buy 1,000 units from you a week, or something of that sort of nature, but I think that there are definitely some cons to that as well, you know, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Rental is something that has become kind of interesting. You know, there are services here in the US like Rent the Runway for fashion, or Furnish for you know, things for at home. The rental market, I haven't done any industry, you know, analysis on this, but I feel like with less money, people might resort to, you know, using some of these services a little bit more coming out of this. So if you're not so sure about buying, you know, a $5,000 dress that you previously wanted, that you said, oh, I might get some value out of, I think that rental is a good opportunity. And there are services like this which do a great job, and something that you could look at. But ultimately, you know, I think for you now, as a brand, taking control. It's no one's going to wake up in the morning now and say, hey, how can I help, you know, Gina? Sorry to put you in this, but how am I going to help Gina this morning with, you know, her brand issue? No one does that. They're not going to wake up saying, how can I help someone? Apart from you, you're going to do that, or your family's going to help you do that. But I think, you know, it's really important to take control and start using, you know, this opportunity to work, you know, different ways. So how do you do that? Well, you know, I think the first thing for me is research. So, you know, I think with research, it's kind of pretty obvious, but you know, looking at, you know, what do your buyers, sorry, there's a spelling error there, but what do your buyers stock now? So, you know, does it make sense that you contact a buyer potentially, or spend, you know, a lot of your time and energy on a buyer that potentially has 5 or 10 competitors of yours, and there's no space for you, you know, within within either their physical location or their online location? Do they stock any of your competitors? Is there anybody that, you know, when you're looking at these buyers, do they stock someone that is exactly the same as you, or someone that you've gone, you know, head to head with before? So do they do that? Are you selling to a local retail competitor? You know, exclusivity clauses are a pain. Obviously, you know, some of them exist, some of them don't, depending on the boutiques. But you could look at different angles of doing this. If someone says, hey, we want this particular set of products from you guys, and their, you know, competitor across the street or maybe down the street would like to buy your products, maybe you can position some of your other products so that there's no conflict, and each store can have a little bit of exclusivity to them. So I would look at ways of negotiating your contracts in that sort of sense. I think that, you know, do they have an online presence is really, really important for places where COVID is still, you know, rampant. North America, obviously, like I said, Europe's doing a little bit better. But I think online presence for your buyers is really, really paramount. If they don't have it, I would be wary. It's kind of limiting your opportunities and you know, moving forward. So I guess, you know, who are their buyers as well, as in their shoppers? Does your product fit their shoppers as well? It's always a good, you know, sort of angle to look at. If in certain communities, you know, is that sort of something that would work for them? And certain neighborhoods, maybe your product doesn't work as well. And I think it's really important to know what their customer experience is like. When you're not controlling your own direct-to-consumer channel, you're relying on somebody else to sell your product. So it's really important that they've got great customer service and they have someone that's compassionate, you know, with what you have as a product. You know, they become your salesperson. You know, whilst it's important for you to have engagement and, you know, maybe having collateral, you know, with your website and things like that listed, so that people know that, you know, it's your product and they can contact you if there's, you know, something that they need to do with your product. It's good for someone to be championing you in store or online and, you know, pitching your what you have. And the only way that's going to happen is that, you know, if they truly believe in your product. I would also evaluate the end-to-end chain of selling to this buyer. I think it's really important to look at their buying strategy. And especially with department stores and big box people, are their rates competitive? Are they going to purchase, a lot of product from you, which is great for, what I guess you look as your top line number, that you sold a certain amount of stuff. The challenge that you have is, if you have a big box and they go bankrupt, or they end up, not selling your things, or, focusing on having end of season sales, and where you have to then discount and they charge you back. I think it's really important to know whether you want to get in bed with that, for lack of a better term. Obviously it's great to have that kind of distribution, but right now I kind of think that it's not the smartest idea. Again, this is my personal opinion. It's just really something you need to think about, for the greater good. Is that good for you? And is that is that going to end up costing you in the long run? Or even, send you into negative in terms of your sales. So you really want to be sure that you are getting the best terms. I think historically, I've encountered a lot of sellers. I've done that from, my own perspective in other ways, where you just want to sell something and you just want to, get that sale and get it across the line, but you don't look at the end goal of whether that's going to be a positive for you. So like I said in the previous slide, take control. It's for you to decide whether this is going to be best for you, or whether it's just going to be, a little step that might get you, maybe some marginal gains or negative gains. So with the sales process, which is where I'm leading to with all of this, I think something that, again, I live by and I repeat, is that people are inherently lazy. And I don't mean that you need to spoon feed everyone, but I just mean that, as an example, if you have somewhere to walk, you're not going to take the long way, if you need to get there reasonably quickly, just because, like in a difficult way with uphills and downhills. If there's a straight path, you're going to walk it. So I mean that, in the kindest way possible as well. Everyone's going to look at what's easiest for them and what's going to work for them. And you kind of need to think of that from a buyer's perspective as well, like what's going to be easy for me. So they don't want to be, having to be challenged when they work with you. So what can you do to make this buying process easy for your buyer? I think the first thing is, having your line very presentable. We obviously work on a B2B software that does lookbooks and line sheets, but it's been an industry standard for decades for a reason. And I think we obviously, have a digital solution, but a lookbook and a line sheet should be targeted. And you can do this yourself. You can do this, using Photoshop or whatever, but whatever presentation that you have, it should have clear photos. That's the first thing they see. Like, ultimately, it doesn't matter what stories you tell or whatever at the very, very end of it. That's important, but they'll see a product and go, you know what, this looks good. This looks like something that I'm interested in. At least gets them in the door, right? So clear photos, showcase your brilliant product. That's really, really, really important. Spend the money, invest the money, or spend the time making sure that you nail that with the right lighting, with the right angles, all that sort of stuff. It's really important that you tell your story, but in as few words as possible. I think you want to create that human connection. Again, going back to my first slide, why? So this buyer's looking at you going, why do I want to buy this? And it's really, really interesting, especially in the last few years, to see sustainability and eco-conscious, goods become really prevalent, especially with millennials and some of the younger population as well. So telling people that this is what I do. This is what I have a sustainable line. I have I do this with my materials. that's relevant information which people can relate to? Or is there a historical thing? You know, I created this because this is what my ancestors have, you know, have done. This is my culture. This is where it's come from. I think that's, you know, really powerful stuff, which lets people connect to you. You know, it's the same thing when you meet someone at a party or you dating, everything like that. You know, what is there an emotional connection that you can create? People don't want to read a 2-page essay on that, but, you know, a short paragraph explaining it. You can chat to them later about it, but, you know, a short paragraph in your presentation is always great. I would make sure that, you know, people have varying views on this, but, you know, grouping things by look or by category is really important. This just comes down to consistency. You know, I think people, when things are messy, it's very difficult to kind of ascertain and go, yeah, this looks good, but then I have to go over here for something. So if you've grouped something in a particular look, you know, jeans, t-shirt, shoes, and hat, you know, pure example, you know, that might be one way, and then put that on one line. This goes all together. Or it could be by category. You have all your t-shirts, you have all your, you know, necklaces, you have all your earrings in one sort of, you know, clear categories sort of split up. It just makes things easier, especially if someone is purchasing maybe again from you and they're looking for that quick product. Oh, I'm really, really short on earrings this month. Okay, I can categorize this and I can look for that, and it's easy to find. You know, makes sense, but have as much of your content as possible without it being messy. So, you know, I would avoid just showing 10 of your products as a little bit of a tease, because maybe that's what they think is that's all you have. So try and display as much as possible. Obviously not 1,000 products, because that's when you're getting a little bit messy on one sheet, but, you know, a healthy amount of your range as possible that you think works for that buyer. It's okay to do different presentations for different people, or different, you know, folios for different people, because, you know, you really want to be targeting who you're aiming this at. So, you know, have as much of it as possible, but relevant to that actual party. In terms of communication and how you're finding these buyers, look, honestly, I don't have a silver bullet. If I did, I'd probably be paid a lot more money than I really am. But, you know, like Googling is, you know, the best way to find people. And given that people are, you know, working electronically now for a lot of their time, I think there are so many ways. You know, you need to Google, let's just say a particular city, and then find out hubs of where people sell. And, you know, maybe you can find some retailers and find some similar retailers that operate there. Try and find who's their head buyer, or who's, you know, their general manager of a store, or whatever is relevant. But I would also find multiple contacts. I think, you know, especially in larger places, again, referencing, you know, American places like Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom, you know, the head buyer is not going to filter through every presentation they get sent. You know, you need to focus on maybe the buyer's assistant, or, you know, someone like that as well. Don't be afraid to send multiple communications. I think, you know, there are great tools like LinkedIn, Rocket Reach, you know, that you can find people's addresses and things like that. There are many of these things available online. You know, we have a marketplace as well. I'll just throw that in there, which can help you find buyers. You know, there are different marketplaces as well around the world, and, you know, some will fit better for others. And I think you just need to find those that sort of work for you. In terms of communication, you know, something that buyers kind of, you know, have stressed before is that they really don't want to be sent things that aren't relevant for them. So again, I go back to my scattergun approach. Like, you're just wasting your own time and bandwidth by sending one generic email to, you know, 100 different people with a subject line of "Hey there." It just doesn't feel very personal. But then the product might not even be right for that particular store. You know, 1 in 1,000 might go for it, but you'd be very, very lucky if that happens. So I think, you know, focus a little bit about, you know, what that buyer is, why your product would suit them, why your brand image would suit them, why, you know, you as a person would suit them, because you're easy to work with. So you want to make this, you know, I've talked about lookbooks, I've talked about, you know, having, you know, I guess as part of our platform, the ability to order straight away, like having these things so that they can't say no. Like, I like looking at this product. Okay, I want it now. Good. The quantity is listed there. I know I can buy 200 of these right now. That's one part of it. My email to them is tailored. Hey, this would work well for you because I noticed that you stock these kind of products. And you're missing some of these, or this is something that might expand or even elevate your shop a little bit. Talk about those things, and not about you. It's about how you're helping them, if anything. So that's really, really important, because it is all about them. And obviously, as I said, how does your product fit your buyer, and how does it relate to their image that they're trying to send out. And if they buy into this, I think it's going to be, really, really straightforward. Like, I think that they will champion you, and they will say, hey, this is a great new product that I got from Mexico City, from Bogota. It's from somewhere unique. It's different. It's got something, that will look good on you, or will go well in your home. I would keep in contact with your buyers. Definitely, again, from experience of our platform and the way that we communicate with our buyers in a certain way. Don't spam them. Don't send them an email every 2 hours or every day or whatever. You're going to hear the word no, so it's fine. Like, it's nothing personal. So yeah, don't spam these people. Send them an email, make a calendar or a note somewhere, appointment to say follow up in a week's time, and then maybe another in a month. But yeah, if these people get thousands of emails a day, so it's not really necessarily personal. It's just they just don't want to get back to you. You want to demonstrate your capability, that you're efficient, you have stock available. I discussed this before, but your delivery, what can you offer from that side? Are you capable of delivering when you say you're going to deliver? Because they need to have reliable, stock and a reliable product. Be strict, be strict with what terms you will and won't accept. At the moment, I think, it's really, really prudent to not accept a bad deal for you, because it's just not. No one can afford to waste money during this pandemic. The ability to order now as well is great. Like, you want to give as few barriers as possible to be able to. You don't want them to say, oh, I like this, I need to contact this person or call this person for more information. I want to order now, like, even if it's not all arranged, but giving them the idea that they're into something. Happen a little bit more once this pandemic is gone, and obviously they can work online too. But if you decide to go down the sales rep angle, this is more for wholesale. Making sure you have a responsible sales rep that's doing the right thing by you, negotiating the best terms for you. Believing in your product, not just someone who's out to earn some commission or whatever. We worked with a lot of brilliant sales reps that use our platform, and we're flexible with that. But I think if you're looking to expand in another region right now and you can't fly, if you don't understand that area and you're at wit's ends emailing people and things like that, maybe you might look into getting a sales rep to assist you potentially in that area. So again, this is an example of some neat presentation. This is how things can look. Organization, your sizing, your pricing, stock levels, it's all there. This is how it should, kind of look, no matter what system or platform you look. Make it look, appealing for people. So I guess to, kind of summarize what I've been sort of saying with all of this, it's really, really important now more than ever to make sure that everything is relatable. People want an emotional connection, a human connection. You want people to, when they're buying, think, I went on a holiday there and this is what I remember. Yes, I want to bring this back to me. Or this was when I was a child. If it's, these are the things that I saw my parents wearing, or I saw in my house, or I saw, around the place, and it reminds me of a certain time and place. you get that with cooking a lot. You know, when you eat in a certain dish, this reminds me of a certain time and place. I smell it, I can feel it, I can touch it. And I think that's really, really important, to create that relatable, you know, emotional human connection with your buyer where you can. I fully appreciate that digital is very difficult to do that in, and what used to be a challenge just to get people to buy a product has become even harder. But I think if you can do, you know, relatable and human, you're going to be a step ahead of, you know, someone else. You know, to summarize again, no is okay. It's okay to say no, because, you know, on both sides, from a retailer's perspective, it's nothing personal, you know, unless you kick their dog or something like that. There's no reason why they're saying no to you at a personal level. Like they're going to say no because the product just doesn't work for them, or they didn't get the right feeling from you, or, you know, it's just not the right time for them at the moment, and maybe they don't have the right budget for it. No is totally fine from their side, but it's also okay for you to say no and say, you know what, this deal doesn't look good for me. I know that it's business, but it could be negative for me. And sometimes, you know, you can get more positives from saying no. I've certainly, you know, learned to do that. You know, my previous career was in enterprise tech sales, and something that I introduced to my teams was the ability to say, you know what, this is something I don't want to bid on. This is something that I don't want to engage my time in, because my time is just as valuable, both trying to create things, but also trying to sell things. So let's step away and focus on things we know we have an ability to control and focus on. You know, I think buyers are ultimately concerned about making money. So, you know, I think as long as, you know, you set some good terms with them and things like that, as long as they see a good way of making money from you and from your products, they're going to go for it. So, you know, that's what you really want to try and present to them. And yeah, I just want to, you know, make that point. So, you know, I guess to summarize, your business is your priority. Like, that's basically it. Like, I think taking control, doing what's best for you, fair product placement. You know, if a buyer, especially if you're looking at physical sort of stuff, says, I'm just going to throw it on a rack here and it's going to get lost around, you know, amongst 100 other goods, that's not really great for you. Like, I think, you know, if you can get more featured placement, whether it's, you know, in smaller quantities and you know, the store is more focused, or if you get gondola or, you know, counter placement with a rack or whatever, that's the sort of things that, you know, you want to be asking for and negotiating with people. You want to get that fair terms with them, and, you know, you want to make sure it's a success for both you and them. And you also need to have some humility and understand that sometimes it's, you know, your product may not be the focus, and that's totally okay as well. But just as long as you're getting, you know, the right positives out of that as well. You know, like I said, buying large quantities and getting chargebacks, that has caused more businesses than I can count to go under and go bankrupt. So just want to make sure that you guys focus on, you know, seeing that that's the sort of opportunity that you can say no to, and make sure that your business is the number one focus in that, and do what works best for you long term. You know, you don't want that one deal to, you know, destroy all your hard work and all your creativity, and, you know, kind of almost stop that creativity. Again, relating on a different level, you know, when I've had certain blockers in my mind for stuff with my music, it's been very difficult to be creative. And ultimately, you guys are all creators, right? You're brilliant at doing that, and you don't want that to stop. You want to keep making that next piece, that next garment, that next thing for your, you know, house or whatever. So having bad deals and bad business and all that sort of stuff also hanging over you is also going to be negative for your own mindset as well. So I think it's really important that you know, you make your business a priority. So, you know, at the end of the day, I hope this answers the question of why. And I think you guys need to focus on why on many, you know, different levels, and just keep asking why, because I found that that's been really productive for me over my career in every different field. Is like, why am I doing this, and why am I approaching it this way, and why should we do it this way? So, you know, hopefully you got some value out of that. We're going to open up for questions, obviously, right now. But again, thank you, and hope to speak to you guys soon, and enjoying the show.
Great, Mark. Thank you so much for your insights, and everything that you shared is really valuable. And it's simple, but it's not as obvious, no? When you're starting or when you haven't dealt with buyers from abroad or buyers that you haven't met before.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that we had the opportunity to have you with us.
Yeah.
There's a question by Maria. She's asking, at the beginning of your presentation, you were talking about some numbers that which industries or which parts of the fashion industry have gone up and down. Do you have any number relating to the cosmetic industry?
I don't. No, I'm sorry.
You don't sell industry at Brandon? I mean,
we have the beauty industry on our platform, but I unfortunately didn't see any numbers on that. I do know that there was a great resource on BBC, which gave me some of this data. So if you search on that, I think it was under retail trends or something like that on the BBC. Definitely worth having a look at. Also, a great resource, which I get newsletters every day, some of it relevant, but some of it not, is Business of Fashion here in the US. They do some really great articles and, some good stuff there. So, yeah.
Totally. Okay, so I'm putting your recommendations here on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Daniela Quiñones, she's a designer. Well, she retails bags made in Ecuador, and they're pretty handmade. She's asking us which is the best tutorial for learning brand boom.
Okay, so we have, I don't know if I can put it on our chat. How do I do that?
Yeah,
chat.
you just copy paste.
Yep, so I'll put it in there, but we have a getting started tutorial, which helps you, as it says, sort of get started on our platform. It's the first tab on the left-hand side. There's some few short videos on how to upload products, how to create presentations and things like that. That's great for a start, but we also have account managers. Carl, who may be listening, and Gina, you've worked with him extensively. He's available along with the rest of our team as well. So we do have a team of account managers and support, unfortunately only in English, but we'll do our best to accommodate. But yeah, they are more than readily available for you guys to ask questions and do walkthroughs, half an hour walkthrough or things like that with. So yeah.
Sí, eso nos consta, trabajando con Brandboom desde hace 10 años. El servicio al cliente, como les decía al principio, es buenísimo. Entonces, Dani, puedes entrar a empezar a hacer tu showroom, o sea, ver el tutorial, empieza a hacerlo, y si te atoras, tienes dudas o problemas, ahí hay un icono de un chat. Entonces ahí te contestan ya sea live, o si no están presentes, después te contactan por mail, y si no, puedes hacer una cita con ellos y te dan media hora de su tiempo para resolver cualquier duda que tengas en Brandboom. Okay, so Danny's asking us, what's the strength when comparing to Airtable, which we use currently?
Honestly, I might get Carl to just ping me some information on this, but I haven't really had a lot of experience with Airtable. In terms of what we do, we have two parts to our platform. The first is what we've been doing for 10 years, which is B2B. So for getting any marketplaces or connecting with whoever, this B2B is almost seen as a Microsoft Office for the fashion, or B2B, like this, the industry. So we let people create line sheets and products, orders, invoicing, payments, all those sorts of things we can do on the platform. So that's the first portion of the platform. The second, which we started about 2 years ago, but it was in beta and then went live about a year ago, is called Connect, which is our marketplace where we use artificial intelligence to help you connect with different buyers. So it's based on categories and things like that. And it takes a few weeks to get going because we need to try and find the right matches for you. But then after a few weeks, we pretty much know, especially if you've got your own buyers purchasing, and we can sort of collect all this sort of data. We know the profile of both the buyers and the sellers, and then we recommend more and more daily. We found some really, really good success. Again, I'm not saying this is an answer for all things. You know, we've had buyers who've come in. Last month we had, a seller and brand who's made 100 new buyers in the last 2 months. So that's phenomenal. I don't know how they've done that, and we've had some brief chats with them, but nothing more. That's a success story. That's great, obviously in a pandemic. But we've also had people who've come in who I've thought who would have amazing success, and they haven't, had as much success. They find maybe 1 or 2, new buyers. So it's just something to try and something to work. But it's definitely something that's different in the industry, considering we use AI and we put a lot of the power in the brand's hands rather than the buyer's hands to protect your products. So, yeah.
Sí, Dani, mira, Brandboom tiene un excelente servicio al cliente. Yo tampoco conozco Airtable, no sabía ni que existía, pero también esto que dicen que te conectan con los buyers, digo, primero, por un lado tú puedes mandarle y conectar a tu catálogo con todos tus buyers, pero al mismo tiempo, con la Artificial Intelligence que tiene el programa de Brandboom, detectan quiénes son tus buyers y empiezan a encontrar buyers aptos para tu marca. Entonces, en el momento en que te conectas a esta cosa de Brandboom que se llama Connect, el mismo Brandboom empieza a mandar tus line sheets a los buyers y te cobran un fee cuando logras una venta y no antes. There's another question, or did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So Airtable is apparently a little bit more like Trello. I think that's just for project management and arranging things, not for order capturing. So definitely order capturing is our strength in our system, and obviously being able to pay and do invoices, and also no AI matchmaking from what I've been told as well. So I guess those are the differences there.
Okay. So Paula asks, for a retailer in the USA, what would be the most attractive thing about distributing products from a country like Mexico?
I think, it's different. That's the main sort of thing that we sort of see. It's products that we don't necessarily get here in the US. Depending on what category you're looking at, obviously boutiques treat things differently, differently to fast fashion and that sort of stuff. But, without trying to sound difficult or xenophobic or anything about it, the US has a lot of products that are made in China. And there tends to be a lack of uniqueness when it comes to, when it comes to that, both because you end up, if you have a unique product, especially in fast fashion places and department stores, you end up having a product that, let's just say, gets created and then it gets repeated again and again. When it gets to H&M, Forever 21, it just cascades its way down, right? What I think is attractive, and especially what I love about Caravana Americana, is that Gina's worked with brands where it's curated in a specific way. You guys create your own stuff. You manufacture more or less, yourselves or locally. Yes, there are some who do it, overseas, but there's a lot of care that's been taken into it. And I think that's, personally for me, I feel that's really, really important, that, that when you purchase a product, you see the care and it hasn't got like little scratches on it because it's been manufactured poorly, or it's been, like got loose things. It ends up getting sent to, and there's nothing wrong, by the way, getting sent to. Here we have discount shops like Marshalls and Ross and some TJ Maxx, where either off-price products get sent, or maybe, products that weren't sold in department stores get sent. So I think if for me, quality over quantity, and I think that's what is different about what I'm seeing from this show, especially, is a differentiator. And I think it also reminds people, again, using that human connection, it reminds people of a time when they were able to visit, Cabo or Tulum or Mexico City, and they go, oh, this is something I saw there. It reminds me of that time. I want this at home because it reminds me that I can't travel right now, so I'm going to put it in my house and decorate that. So I think personally that's what I feel about the products from Mexico.
Sí, yo creo que es muy importante, ya que somos únicos en el mundo por el trabajo que presentamos, por la calidad artesanal que tienen nuestros productos o por la propuesta tan original por ser latinoamericanos, es muy importante comunicarlo y comunicarlo muy bien y conciso y salirnos tal vez del mainstream ya como que ahorita lo voy a decir porque leyendo todas las biografías de los diseños de caravana que solicitaron, todos prácticamente dijeron como está hecho a mano. Y es claramente un gran valor el hecho a mano y trabajar con artesanos, pero creo que vamos a tenerle que dar un twist para que esa comunicación sea todavía más original, más auténtica y más profunda. Y de lo que dijo Mark al principio del why are you doing this y por qué estamos en lo que estamos haciendo, yo creo que la comunicación del por qué es muy, muy importante y muy profunda y creo que lo que podemos comunicar a un público extranjero que no conoce nuestro producto, que se esté empezando a interesar y que además ellos necesitan, como tiendas de concepto o como tiendas boutique o lo que sea, necesitan tener productos que los hagan diferenciarse de las otras tiendas. Entonces también tenemos esas palabras que decir, como que mi producto va a hacer que tu tienda sea original y sea nueva y sea diferente y proponga cosas auténticas. Ese fue un comentario que dijo Carl ahí abajo. Entonces, bueno, next. I put a little bit of my thoughts into it.
Oh, yeah.
So Alexia is asking us, she doesn't know if we mentioned it, but we didn't, if you can give us an example of what's the perfect email or what's a good email we can send to buyers.
Yeah, okay. I think, you know, again, this is, it's always challenging and always difficult, but first of all, you know, basics are your subject line has to be enough and interesting for them to read. So, you know, is it your brand name or, you know, something about you which will interest, you know, the buyer, and keep it short as well. I think, you know, that's as brief and as efficient as possible is important. But hopefully, yes, then they open your email, all right? And I think back to what I said before, personal is great. It does, you know, it shouldn't look like you copied. Everyone's going to copy and paste. Let's be realistic about it. Like you're going to copy blocks of text, right? But you should definitely tailor and customize each email after that so that you have custom, you know, relate things to them and say, you know, I noticed you have this in your store. I noticed that you know, arranging these products, or you're missing these products, or whatever it is that you want to say, why you think you'll be valuable for them. Keep your email relatively brief. Again, you know, someone doesn't want to read through 10 pages of history books on there, but enough to tell them three things, or a few things, which is why you're important for them, what is it that you do and where you came from. So, you know, a few sentences on that, and what your product is. And, you know, I think if you can capture that in as brief and as simple text as possible, you're always going to have success. There's again, no use doing, you know, 10 long paragraphs, because people won't read it. You know, they're going to flick through these emails and go, what's easy for me? Oh, this looks easy. I've got my, you know, this has also got a link to my line sheet here, or, you know, a PDF of my line sheet, however you want to do it. You know, make it simple, and I think keep it short and simple. You know, we use that term in Australia and in the US, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So yeah.
They also suggest in general, no, like MailChimp and all those, to show a picture right away. So be clear, be concise, and then show an image, which is most probably they will see rather than read if you put a large paragraph.
Yeah, I just will say, sorry, Gina, to step into that. With images, also don't overload with images, especially on file size. Image, I think, is great, and I think very, very relevant, because then, yeah, they can visually see, okay, this is what this is all about. However, if you add too many, or, you know, too large a file size, or make the email sound too newslettery, things like Gmail will send it straight to the newsletter inbox, so it might skip your inbox as well. So you just want to be very careful of how you balance that.
I didn't know that. Okay. ¿Alguien más tiene una preguntita? Bueno, ya es la 1:30, ya vamos a terminar este panel, pero díganme si quieren saber algo más. Recuerden que hablar con Mark y hablar con Carl, que también está aquí en el chat, es muy sencillo, o hablar con cualquier persona de Brand Boom para resolver cualquier duda o situación con Brand Boom, es el mejor servicio al cliente, de verdad. So Mireya wants to know your contact.
Yeah, mine is, it's really simple. I'm going to put it in here, but it's just mark@brandboom.com. And I'm also going to put Carl, who is on the line as well, who's the account manager actually looking after Caravana Americana and spoken to most of the brands that have come through. Either one of us, but yeah, we're available.
Okay. So it's been really nice to talk to you, Carl, and to listen, I mean, Mark, to all your ideas. And well, it's really inspiring to know that we have these technologies to allow us to reach out to all these buyers, and all these buyers that might now be also selling online mostly. And so, you know, there's a big opportunity there. Maybe they're not buying, they still have to buy because they're transforming their business again also. Yeah, exactly. So thank you, and we'll be still talking much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, pues terminamos con nuestras Caravana Talks. Gracias por estar aquí presentes, gracias por ser parte de Caravana.